going on, people? Welcome back to Nick J. Francis channel once again, and it is February the 1st, which can only mean one thing: the January transfer window is finished. It's done, and whoever you've got now is who you've got until the end of the season. And I just want to take a moment to assess what we've done in the transfer window at Arsenal, and have we addressed some of the issues that we need? Have we brought players in that are going to help us towards this title charge that we find ourselves in? So we're going to assess that, and then I'm going to mark the transfer window overall out of 10 and assess Arteta, Edu, the Kroenkes, because we're constantly talking about them and there's a lot of heat on Edu at the moment. So I just want to really take a moment to assess what exactly it is and how I see the transfer window having gone. So let's start with the outs first. Marquinhos to Norwich. Marquinhos is a player that I like a lot. He's young, he's raw, he's Brazilian. We have success with this type of transfer in the past, but sometimes they do need a loan. They need a moment. They need some time to adjust to the league. What Brazil doesn't have that the Premier League has, and even that the Championship has, is that real rough and toughness. You know, the Premier League is a very difficult league to adjust to. And I think Marquinhos has shown signs that he could maybe play some Europa League games, but certainly not ready for the Premier League. He's still only 19 years old. And so I think a loan in this country is really, really good. It's really important to him to build him not just as a player, but to also build him as a man. He's 19 years old, like I said, he's quite young. I look at this transfer and I think back to Smith Rowe going to Huddersfield, and Arteta said that Smith Rowe going to Huddersfield was not about football. He could play the game. It was about him growing as a person, growing as a human being, and then hopefully coming and bringing that growth back to the pitch, which is hopefully what we can replicate. Norwich are currently 7th in the Championship, but do have the fourth highest scoring team. So they are a very attacking team. They scored 40 goals so far this season, despite being 7th. And they do need someone like Marquinhos to go in and bring that pace, bring that directness, and hopefully, like I say, somewhere that he can grow, where the defenders are very good, very big, very strong, but maybe not quite as technical, not quite as organised as they're going to be in the Premier League, not quite as well drilled, and he can hone his craft in a league like the Championship. This is what I really, really like to see, is us assessing where a player's weakness is and then addressing that. So I think it's a very, very good transfer. I would rate that an 8 out of 10 because he just isn't going to displace anybody in the current Arsenal side. Sambi Lokonga to Crystal Palace. Now this is a great transfer. Really, really good transfer. Again, looking at Sambi Lokonga, where there's a player there, there's some talent there, and he hasn't been able to force his way into the team. We have an incredible starting 11 when everybody's fit. And if you're Sambi Lokonga, if you want to get into this team, you have to really push your way into the team. And that means coming into the games with 15 minutes to go, 7 minutes to go, or even if you get a start and play the full 90, you have got to push other people out of the way and show what you can do. And we've seen a bit of a regression in Sambi Lokonga. He started the season really well in the Europa League, playing well. And then the last couple of games he's come on and played, even when he's come off the bench, he's been making mistakes, and it looks like he's in his own head a little bit and overthinking things. He needs to go somewhere where he can get consistent minutes. Crystal Palace is a team at the moment that's struggling. They did just get a 0-0 against Newcastle, which is really good, but they are a fast transition team, and that's a team where someone with Sambi Lokonga's midfield experience and playing in that position should hopefully see a lot of the ball and get more comfortable playing week in, week out. I think he just needs minutes, but we are in too much. If we weren't in a title race, I'm convinced we would have kept him, but being in a title race, every point is so important. We just can't have these types of mistakes that he's going to make at this particular moment. If we were going for 4th, he would absolutely be here, but we're not. And this is a great sign from the Kroenkes and from Edu to say that we believe we can win the league this season. So we need to bring in someone more experienced to take that position. And what better person for Sambi to learn from than one of the best midfielders in that position that we've seen ever in the history of football, and certainly one of the best the Premier League's ever seen, in Patrick Vieira. Patrick Vieira obviously is a fan of Arsenal and knows exactly what it takes to be a great centre mid at Arsenal because he was one himself. So there is no better place for Sambi Lokonga to go on loan, to play in the Premier League. And again, if we expect this guy to come back, or if he expects of himself to come back and be a Premier League player, he needs to show what he can do within this league. A loan to France or Germany or Spain just wouldn't do. He's got to be here where we can see what he can do right here in front of us in this very league. So I would rate that an 8 out of 10. I think that's both very, very smart loans for both players. And hopefully, I wish them the best of luck because they have huge potential. Now, onto the ins, onto the players that we've signed. We've got 3 players in. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Leandro Trossard, which, you know, at first seemed underwhelming because we were going for Mudryk, Mikhailo Mudryk. And obviously he went to Chelsea instead because of the structure of the payments. So we know all about that story. You know, Chelsea have just been going crazy, 600 million in the last 6 months or something ridiculous like that. You know, we'll see how that goes for them. But we're here to talk about Arsenal. And I think that it's a great backup signing. It doesn't feel like a panic buy. There is an element of luck because Trossard was going through some issues with his own club. But I think that in the past, we've had situations like this where we just haven't acted fast enough. We dedicated enough time to Mudryk to walk away from that situation, hand on heart, and say, we've done pretty much everything that we could do that within being sensible, right? Because in football, there's always going to be an unsensible number like 150 million or something silly. And I think that Edu and the Kroenkes will go to bed at night genuinely believing in their heart, whether you agree or not, they will believe in their heart they did everything that they can to get that deal over the line. It didn't happen. So the fallback, the secondary option, is somebody who has Premier League experience, somebody who has scored against the top six, somebody who has played in a team like Brighton who play possession-based football and play multiple formations, because we play different formations in possession and out of possession, and he will understand that. He came on and played against Manchester United and showed immediately that he understood that with the overlapping pass that he made and created a goal pretty much straight away. So I'm really, really positive about Trossard. One of the other things that we needed to address is this team is very young. What we don't have is a lot of experience in the team. We don't have a lot of age and wisdom and experience. And he certainly, although he hasn't got a huge trophy cabinet, he has that. He can bring some composure to the side, and he is a step ahead of Martinelli. I would still start Martinelli because Martinelli's in the flow of the team, understands what the manager wants. But Trossard does what Martinelli does, maybe at a slightly higher level. He doesn't have the physical side. He's not as quick, he's not as dynamic as Martinelli. But in terms of the sensible decision-making, I actually think Trossard is a overall slightly better player from the short time that I've seen him playing at Arsenal. But it's somebody that Martinelli can learn from. I'm hoping that the Trossard signing has the same impact on Martinelli that the Jesus signing had on Nketiah. We are seeing Eddie Nketiah do things now at Arsenal in an Arsenal shirt that we've never seen him do at a level we've never seen him perform at. And I attribute a huge amount of that, not just to Arteta, but to Gabby Jesus coming in and showing him how to do things at a higher level. And Martinelli hasn't had that for a while. So hopefully him and Saka can both learn from that. I think it's a really good signing, an 8 out of 10. The second player that we brought in is Kivior. Now, Kivior has been at Spezia for 2 years. He's only 22, so he doesn't have a big profile before that, but he's coming from the Italian league where we know that they are very defensive first, which means that their defenders take a lot of touches on the ball, and Italian defenders, he's Polish, but defenders from the Italian league tend to be quite comfortable on the ball because they are so defensive. He's the left-sided centre-back, so he'll be an understudy to Gabriel, who's played 90 to 95% of all the minutes this season and will need some time to rotate. What I really like about the Kivior signing is being able to rotate Gabriel is obviously the first priority, but in keeping with Arteta's philosophy for football, he can play multiple positions. He can play left back, he can play left-sided centre-back, and he can play in a defensive midfield position, which is something that we need. We really like players at Arsenal who can play multiple positions, and it's something I missed out about Trossard, that he plays across the front three. He can play centre-forward, he can play both wings, he's good with both feet. And Kivior is somewhat similar, where he can play anywhere on that left side, centre-back, left back, or defensive midfield, and that's going to be something that we're going to need when we're rotating players out, players that can come in and do multiple different jobs. His key strengths, like I say, coming from Italy, his key strengths are he's 6'2", very, very strong, very aggressive, a bit of a similar profile to Martinez, Alessandro Martinez, that is, which it seems like who was somebody we looked at in the summer, and it seems like maybe Mikel wants someone a little bit more aggressive in that back four, as opposed to a lot of our players are quite withdrawn. They let play happen to them, but they don't push the action, and I think that that's what he wanted a little bit. So like I say, he's very, very similar to Alessandro Martinez, but where Alessandro Martinez is 5'9", Kivior is 6'2", so he's a very big, very imposing player, and I'm really interested to see, with so many high-stakes games in the Europa League and the Premier League, I'm not too sure where he's going to play in terms of not just position, but what games he's going to actually come into the side and play. When is he going to step into the team? That's what I'm really excited and really interested to see, because every game that we've got is really important. But I think that's a really good signing as well. Not quite as urgent maybe with the rotational players that we have with Ben White and Rob Holding is still there, but still a 7 out of 10. The last signing that we made, the big controversial signing that we made that everybody's been talking about for the last couple of days, is Jorginho. And Jorginho is one of the reasons I waited to make this video, because when I heard that we were getting Jorginho, I wasn't happy. In short, I wasn't happy. I was nervous, I was frustrated, and yeah, I didn't like the idea of the signing. Obviously, Chelsea is one of our biggest rivals, and we are always trading players back and forth, mostly us getting from them. They've got Aubameyang from us, and it's very rarely fruitful. People have compared it to Cech, David Luiz, Willian, and I actually think that Cech was a decent signing. David Luiz was a reasonable signing, but made some serious mistakes, and Willian is a waste of time. And so it's about, what's the mentality that Jorginho is going to come with? Jorginho is 31 years old. He doesn't, maybe not winding down his career, you know, but maybe just beyond the peak of his best moments. So it depends on what Jorginho will be getting. Are we getting someone who's really motivated? He was a massive lover of Chelsea, really bought into Chelsea as a brand. So are we getting someone that can really switch that allegiance, or are we just getting someone coming from an easy paycheck? Those were my first concerns. Well, the first thing that makes me relaxed is this contract is 18 months. It's just for the end of this season and obviously next season, because we can't really give him 6-month contract. So 18-month contract. Now that tells me that in the summer we are willing to go big, and we are willing to go and get a Caicedo or a Rice or somebody like that. And because we've looked at those names, Caicedo, Rice, Zubimendi from Spain, because we've looked at those names, Jorginho seems like an unflattering name, which is true. It's absolutely true. But again, with the Caicedo deal, he's only got 20 Premier League appearances at the moment, so he's not even a nailed on, might not necessarily be the player we all think or hope that he is, but that's something we can revisit in the summer. We'll track that relationship with Brighton. Declan Rice and Zubimendi, both very loyal players to their teams and don't want to leave in the middle of the season. Zubimendi actually has a £52 million release clause, which we could trigger, but he just told us he would not be happy leaving in the middle of the season. He wants to see the season out. So I think it's something we'll revisit, which takes a bit of jeopardy and pressure off of the situation. But I think we also have to remember that this guy isn't coming in to be a starter, right? It's January. He's coming in to be an understudy to Thomas Partey. And I think, again, from a technical perspective, taking away how I look at the player, because Thomas Partey is also 30, so they're both above that 30-year-old mark, they do very, very different things. To me, Jorginho is somebody that uses his brain a lot more than uses his physicality, and we've all become big fans of watching how Thomas Partey uses his physical strength and his physical prowess, his speed, his power. With Jorginho, we lose that, but what Jorginho is very good at is decision-making and reading the game. He actually is statistically better than Xhaka and Partey by a considerable distance in terms of interceptions, in terms of, I think Partey beats him for tackles, he beats Partey for interceptions. So Partey is somebody that pushes and meets his man and stops them at the source. Jorginho will maybe sit off a little bit and look at what that player is going to do next and try and cut the ball out there. So they are different types of defensive midfielders, but to get somebody with the experience that he's got, he was a Ballon d'Or runner-up, bizarrely, a couple of seasons ago. He's won the Champions League. To get someone like that for £12 million is huge, and apparently it's something that Arteta wanted. He's somebody that Arteta singled out and said, actually, this is the guy that can do the job. And I think if he comes in and he's aware that he's a stopgap player, it can be really good. And again, having such a young team, you know, a season or two ago, we were lacking the Zinchenko's, Jesus, Thomas Partey, Leandro Trossard, Jorginho. All of these players bring huge amounts of experience. Some of these players have won trophies. We've got, you know, we know the City boys won 4 Premier Leagues. Jorginho just spoke about winning the Champions League. You know, these are players who have a huge amount of experience and I think can help us with our composure if we drop any points. In terms of bringing experience, you know, Declan Rice has not performed, you know, winning trophies, not performed at that level. Caicedo, similarly, like I say, he only just got to the Premier League last season, or this season, rather. He's only got 20 appearances. So those are players we can go and look at and bring through slowly. But these players that we've just signed are players that need to come and make an impact right now. And when I say an impact, that might not just be on the pitch, that could be on the training ground, could be in the back room, could be leading people and talking the younger players through things. All in all, I think the overall window is a 7 out of 10. I think that we have addressed the key issues. I think that I like the recruitment policy. I like the idea that, you know, the board obviously believe in Arteta and believe in what we're doing. They've shown with Caicedo, £65 million, Mudryk, £100 million, or €100 million, £85 million. They've shown that they are willing to spend the money. They are willing to spend the money on the right profile of player, but they still put a marker down for where they're not willing to go. I'm a big fan of this new Arsenal and the way that we're running the club. I think Edu has done a good job. He's been a little bit lucky in the sense that a couple of these have fallen into his lap. Trossard falling out with the management at Brighton, and obviously Jorginho wanting to stay in London because of his family and his kids and all the rest of it. But still, in the past, these situations had fallen into our lap and we wouldn't act on them. We would miss opportunities to act on them. You know, we saw Fabregas coming back to England from Barcelona. He wanted to come to Arsenal. We just didn't act quick enough, and Chelsea got him. And that really could be the difference between winning titles and not winning titles. So overall, I think a 7 out of 10. There's room for improvement, of course. There are big names and big marquee signings we want to see, but we don't want to overpay. If we look at Chelsea, £600 million spent, and if I'm totally honest with you, a lot of their players are, in my opinion, underwhelming. That it looks more fancy, it looks more marquee than it actually is, but that's a whole nother topic for another video. That's all I've got time for now. 7 out of 10 window. I think that we can go on and win this Premier League title, or at least give it a good old run, and see where we end up. If we finish second, it's not the end of the world considering what we expected at the beginning of the season. But given where we are, you know, hopefully we can go on and clinch it. Remember, we still have Smith Rowe and Jesus to come back into the side as well. And El Neni's out with a long-term injury, and hopefully Jorginho covers that. So that's all I got time for. Let me know what you think. Who do you think won the transfer window? We're taking Chelsea out of it completely because they're just a waste of time, and we can't even compete with the kind of money that they're spending. So, you know, never mind them. But for anybody else, what do you think? And who are you most excited to see out of these 3 transfers? 7 out of 10. You tell me, am I right or wrong?